to interview Nic Peterson, the author of Bumpers. So yeah, I had a couple of pages of great questions lined up, but I thought that'd be too predictable.
One more start.
Okay.
So you're getting all the practice. So
yeah, exactly. So, okay, Dave Streen here with author Summaries, going to interview Nic Peterson about his book Bumpers. I had a couple of pages worth of questions all prepared to make me look real smart and everything, but I thought they'd be too predictable and not much fun. So I figured we'll just wing it and see where it goes.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
Before we dig into the book, I want to comment. One of our mutual friends, Joe Polish, taught me how to really read a book, and that's destroy it. I used to keep my books pristine, and I was always heard saying, "Hey, that's not a coaster, that's a book." Like I had to really keep them pristine. And then we were in the library right over here at Genius Network, and Gina was offering me 2 books and said, "Oh, one's got to read," and she said, "One's got Joe's notes in it, and the other one's brand new. Which one do you want to read?" And that's when the light bulb clicked, and I said, "Wow, I want the one with the notes in it." So that's what gave me the ability to highlight and write all over these things and stuff. So when you read Bumpers, don't read it, dig into it, do the work. That's where the true results are going to come from. So do you want to tell the story about how this became a book?
Yeah, Bumpers was like, I always joke that it's like the Google Doc that refused to die. I woke up, it's probably 3:30, 4 in the morning. I was living in California. And it was like, you ever get those things that pop into your head and they won't go away? And so I woke up probably, again, 3:30 in the morning, and I'm laying there, like, all right, I'm gonna go back to bed. And it just wasn't gonna happen. It's like this thing in my head, I gotta write it down. If I write it down, maybe it'll go away. So I went and I went to the office, which was a couple minutes from my house, and I just started typing. And I probably typed for 4 hours straight. And it was like, all right, cool. That's out of my head now. And then my business partner, Timothy Dick, who's, we have an office in California, I was like, hey, I brain dumped, and Tim and I are close, and we share stuff with each other. I was like, hey, check this out. And that was kind of it, right? And I had a mastermind at the time, probably 45 people in it. And we started doing the events at our office. And so we had 45 people in the office. It was like a really cool clubhouse setup. It was kind of like this, a little bit different. And we're like, all right, house cleaning, housekeeping stuff. We start the event, 45 business owners in the room. And Tim's like, hold on, I got something. And he'd printed off 40 copies of my brain dump, right? And so he hands it out, and like, I put out stuff with typos all the time, but I was like, hey guys, just so you know, this is like, was not expecting anybody to read this, yada, yada, yada. I'll come back, eventually maybe I'll clean it up. You guys let me know. I started getting texts and Facebook messages, and people are like, I take this with me everywhere. Don't ever change it. And all right, because I never intended to write a book. I'm not doing, like, if my people like this, awesome. Like, that's a huge win. And so it circulated, and then Jeff Moore came to the office, and you know Jeff Moore, right? Jeff Moore came to the office, and he's like, I didn't get a copy. So I gotta print you one. So I printed one off real quick, and we went over to Tim's office where the printer was, and I realized after it was done printing that Tim had printed labels, and it was still label paper in there. So the Jeff Moore has a copy of my book that's on label paper. It's like just labels, it's like
awesome.
20 pages of labels. And so people kept sharing it, and it was kind of cool, but it was also typos, and it was just a brain dump. And my COO of a previous company of mine was like, hey, look, I've done some self-publishing. Can we publish this? Because it makes a pretty good front end for the business. I was like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. So we published it on Amazon, typos and all. And people kept buying it, and it was crazy to me. And then it was actually Joe Polish who reached out. He read it, and he reached out to me, and I just met Joe, and he was like, I love this book. I can't share it with anybody because it's ugly as shit, and there's typos. And I was like, yeah, man, sorry. I'm not an author. It's not my thing. Yeah. He's like, can I please give this to Anna David? You know Anna.
Yeah.
She owns a publishing company, and like, can we just have her edit it and publish it? Yes, sure, whatever. You know, like, I've never thought of the book as being a thing because it was a total accident. So it got republished, which is the version you have. That's actually the newest one.
This is the 36-page short one. That's the first one that I got.
Oh yeah.
Then
You got
Now it's the newer.
And so I'll tell you how that one came. So we got the first one.
Okay.
And then I got a phone call, and you know how when you get a phone call and you don't have the number saved, but it says maybe it's this person? I got a phone call from Becky Robbins. It said, missed call from maybe Becky Robbins. I'm like, is that Tony's wife?
Yeah, that's what.
So I texted, I was like, hey, I got a missed call from maybe Becky Robbins. What's up? And she goes, yes, it's me, Becky, Tony's first wife. I just read your book. I love it so much. Is there any chance that we could have a conversation? And can I send this to all my friends? And I was like, oh shit. I should read my book to figure out what's being distributed, you know? So I read it, the shorter version, and I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. This book sucks. So I rewrote the whole thing, which is the longer version.
I think it's 79 pages now.
Yeah. And what I did was I took it chapter by chapter and I put it in the Hemingway app.
Oh.
And it read somewhere between 9th and 12th grade, you know?
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. I've never been a fan of get your writing down to 3rd grade level, because I'm like, I don't sell shit to 3rd graders. But I did. I worked really hard to just get it down as low as I could. So the newest version reads on average like a 6th grade level.
Okay.
And then so I went and I read it again, and I was like, this is a better book. So I was totally against dumbing it down for so long. Yeah. But I did the work, got it down to 5th or 6th grade level, and it's like, this is a better book. And that's the version that's there now.
I love it. I almost wonder if you should have kept the original short and then had this as like a part 2 or something.
I thought about it, yeah.
Because they're pound for pound the best knowledge I think I've read. It's against Dale Carnegie, against everything I've read. This has so much applicable bang for the buck, both on business and personal life, however you want to choose it. Just some of the practices you've put in here. Do you want to talk about, just like raising the floor? I just came off my best month ever with my tool company. Mm-hmm. That's all I did was raise the floor and did 3 or 4 simple moves and got my best month out of 10 years. And I'm predicting that every month's going to be the same just from those little things. So do you want to tell people what raise the floor is?
Yeah, I'll start with, because we're sitting here right now.
And it's just one thing.
Anybody watching this or listening won't know this, but Dr. Jeff Spencer is sitting in the room, like looking at him. He's ignoring me. But Jeff and I are similar, and it's the way that I write, which is I have this thing where it's like, if you need to use a lot of words and you need a lot of charts and graphs and et cetera to prove your point, you're either trying to prove something that is not self-evident, or you're speaking to people that don't have the capacity to see it. So I try to write, which is why I think bumpers for the people that like it is so impactful, is I try to write or speak about things that once you hear them, it's like, oh, duh. Like, it's self-evident. So it doesn't require a lot of words. And raise the floor is one of them. Yeah. No one wins a race they don't want to be in is another one that people quote a lot. So
celebrate when bad things don't happen.
Yeah, learn to appreciate when bad things don't happen. Yeah. And they're things that they're not super advanced or complicated. It's just like, oh, shit, that makes sense. And because it immediately makes sense, it's generally easier to figure out what to do with it. You ever read a book and you're like, this blew my mind, and like, what the hell do I do with it? Yeah. So just trying to, if I need a lot of charts and graphs and citations, it's not the thing for me to write about or talk about. So that's the first one. And raising the floor, it's just the concept that you have your weight, you have your revenue, your income, your relationships. They're volatile, all of it. Everything in the world, there's no straight lines, right? So any complex system is going to have some volatility. And if you look back, so let's say in your business. Everybody wants to do better. They remember that time they did really good and they want to do better than that. And it's like, your best, by definition, is the best you have ever proven that you can do. Could you do better? Maybe, but it's going to be really hard. How do I know? Because the whole history of your life says that this is the best you've ever done. So it's very unlikely you're going to do better than that. However, we can look at that same data and we can see that it's very easy for you. It's probable, in fact, that you could do better than your worst because most of the time you do. Oh. So if you raise the ceiling, it raises the average. If you raise the floor, it raises the average. Which one has a higher probability? That's all. It's just risks and probabilities. Yeah. So when you see volatility, it's like, can we raise the floor? That's it. So instead of, that day like where you ate almost perfect, instead of trying to eat more perfecter, why don't you just not binge eat 6 pizzas on Sunday? That's a lot easier. Yeah. And so that's just the concept is you got your best days and your worst days, your best months, your worst months, your best years, your worst years. Dr. Jeff Spencer actually has a concept called best year, worst year. Because after you do your best is the highest probability, like you're in the most fragile state there. The resources it took to do your best, like you're tired and you're burnt out and you took on a lot of obligation. And so if we can raise the floor, the average goes up, right? And if you keep raising the floor and keep raising the floor to where it's almost your ceiling, you know what they call that? Okay. Consistency. Yeah. I have people that are like, well, my best days and my worst days are almost the same. What do I do? Like, awesome. You are consistent. Yeah. You now have like a tight feedback loop. So if one day you play in the NFL, one day you have a perfect passer rating, you throw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. The next week you throw 4 interceptions. It's like, how do you improve? There's so much volatility. There's no, like, what variable do we focus on? So it's raise the floor, raise the floor, raise the floor, raise the floor. Eventually your floor and your ceiling are about the same. So if you continue to raise the floor, you're just raising the level at which you show up consistently, right? And eventually your floor is higher than everybody else's ceiling. So we always say it's not sexy raising the floor until it is. Yeah. Until your worst day is better than everybody else's best day. So that's the concept of raising the floor. It's awesome. It is the highest probability, least resource intensive way to get the outcome that you want. Trying to do better than your best is the lowest probability and it requires the most amount of resources. And you take on a lot of risk. One more example. I'll give you 2 examples because they're the first is like, let's say you want to lose weight. Okay? And you're like, okay, I'm going to do really good this week. And you have your best week, super strict, exercise a whole bunch, so you lose weight. It's your best week, and now next week you want to lose more? Losing weight faster, generally speaking, your metabolism's going to downregulate, so it becomes harder. So you actually make the game harder and harder and harder on yourself, right? So if you starve yourself and exercise a whole bunch, risk adjusted, you're in the worst position because you're starving and you're over-exercised, and it's a very, very fragile place to be. Yeah. Now, in your business, you have your record month, and you go, okay, I'm going to push for a new record next month. What do you have to do? You probably have to take on expenses, expand the building, get more resources, hire more staff. All of those things put you in a really fragile position because your overhead just went up. So you have a record month, you take on a record amount of expenses, and then any dip in revenue can wipe you out. Right? Whereas you could have gotten the same amount of money in your bank at the end of the year had you, instead of increasing the ceiling by 20%, you just increase the floor by 20%. But, so same outcome, minus the risk, minus the obligation, minus the enormous effort. So that's kind of the whole raise the floor concept. It's just the...
Yeah, that's when I said I had my best month. Like, that was months and months of raising the floor. And it was very easy. I had 0 days. Mm-hmm. I just had to say, all right, how do I never have a 0 day? Put a few things in place, and that's what made all the difference. It took time to catch up and do those things, but
do you know Dave Berg?
Made such a difference. Yeah.
So Dave Berg invented a thing called the Zero Report. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that.
He read my book and then he ran over. He's like, you got to see this. It's a Zero Report. And that's exactly what it is. He maps out everything and there's a range, right? So he's like, we should have 5 sales calls a day, let's say, right? So anything under 5 is a 0. And all they do in their business, they map out everything, is they look for the zeros, they eliminate them. And I mean, I think
Awesome.
that company's worth over 100 million. And it's just figuring out what is the range that's appropriate, and if we dip below that range, we call it 0. And all they do, they just look at the sheets, eliminate the zeros, and year-over-year growth. That's
So
an
good.
example
Yeah.
of it, yeah.
It's great. Awesome. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't? Or anything you think the readers would want to know?
No, I think Raise the Floor was the best thing to share.
Yeah.
Bumpers is, I said it on Amazon as low as they'd let me, so it should not be price prohibitive for anybody. It's like $3.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do recommend, for the reason that you shared at the beginning, I do recommend physical copies.
Yeah, yeah. So you can write in them
yeah.
and make notes. And I just made a Facebook post. I think I tagged you in it, so you'd see you. It said I just finished reading Bumpers again. Time to start reading Bumpers again. It's The Man Can't Step in the Same River Twice. Every time I go back to it, I get different ahas, and I'm in a different place. So I've got a stack of them. So I just keep reading it.
Awesome.
Again, I think pound for pound of actually going to implement and move the needle, this book wins. So,
Awesome. Well,
thanks,
I appreciate
Nick.
it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, Rakeem.
Thanks, Rakeem.
And this